So thank you. From Soldiers Memorial, from the Missouri Historical Society, it's an honor to be with all of you today. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to one of our Soldiers Memorial Commission and Committee members, Gilberto Pinela.
Thank you, Mark. I'm Gilberto Pinela. During the day, my official job is Director of the Office of New Americans for Mayor Kara Spencer, under the Mayor's office. And I'm also a Sub-District Commissioner for the Missouri Historical Society and the liaison on behalf of the mayor for Soldiers Memorial. And I sit on the committee that made this happen. So really proud that we got to this point. And I want to thank Mark Sumlop for his leadership and steering this ship to get to the point where we have now a banner exhibit of Hispanic soldiers, and also we're going to start this event commemorating Hispanic military personnel every year. So this is very important. So thank you so much. My esteemed panel, thank you so much for, again, braving the parking situation and coming in today. I'm going to allow you all to introduce yourselves, and I'm going to start with you, Esmeralda. And can you tell me, number one, a little bit about you, but number two, can you tell us why you decided to join the military? What was the reason or reasons?
Yeah. Thank you so much, first of all, for this kind invitation. I'm excited to be here and for the work that you do here at the Soldiers Memorial. I'm Esmeralda Aharon. I work as the Program Director for Faculty, Staff, and Community Engagement in the Office of Ignatian Mission in Medicine at St. Louis University. And I also serve in the Hispanic Leaders Group. I'm part of the Board of Directors as well as VetBiz, and I'm also the co-founder of Latinas Rising. Now, I joined the military. You know, many people join for different reasons, but I actually joined it because I was trying to do something bigger than myself. I had just lost my son in December of 1993. And I was having a really hard time processing that. And the grief was so intense that I figured, okay, how can I help myself while at the same time find purpose and help others? So I found a recruiter, and I enlisted within a few months. By May of 1994, I was already at basic training. So that was really fast, really quick. I actually came in open general. And so that means that I had no position assigned to me. I wanted to just be able to, again, serve. I've always been very patriotic. I loved marching in band, and I loved the national anthem. We were just talking about that before. And so I wanted to serve, but I also wanted to heal. And the Chaplain Corps helped me do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Alexander, let's go with you.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody, and thank you as well for the invitation to be here. My name is Dr. Alex Garza. I'm the Chief Community Health Officer for SSM Health. I've been in the Army Reserves for going on 28 years now. So it's been a while. So why I joined the military? So I think it was a couple of things as I sat and thought about these. You know, I come from a tradition of military service. So my dad was in the Army in Korea. My Uncle Bob on my mom's side was infantryman in Korea as well, and won the Silver Star for his actions there. Great uncle was in the Marine Corps and unfortunately perished in the Pacific Theater, and so had a history of service in our family. I also think, you know, as I was growing up, so I'm Gen X, and we were sort of on the tail end of, you know, all the great World War II movies, and then Korea, Vietnam, and so it was just part of, I think, of our lives is to be exposed to things like that. But I've always admired people that served, and I always thought that when I had a chance that I would serve when my time came. And as I matured, I began to realize this was more about service to the country, service to your community. And so after I graduated from medical school, so I'm sort of a weird guy, if you get to know me. So I graduated from medical school, and then I joined the Army Reserves. Most people join to have them pay for medical school, but but I didn't do that. And so it was May 27th, 1997, when I took my oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I've been serving ever since then. And I think some of the internal reasons were, as Esmeralda said, you wanted to serve on something that's bigger than yourself, something that means something in your life, and something that's challenging, and to put something that was, significant. And I found that in the Army. And so those were some of the big reasons why I joined and why I continue to serve.
Thank you. Gabriela?
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Gabriela Ochoa, but I go by Gabby. I am a program manager at a funder/nonprofit based in North County, St. Louis. We are committed to rebuilding equity in the 24-1, which is a community north of the Del Mar Divide. If you'd like to talk more about that, I have so much to say. But I'm glad to be here with you today. I am here today because I joined the Navy right out of high school. I came from a military family, first generation Americans, but also I was the first generation to graduate high school. I was the first to go to college. My parents gave me the option of going into debt to get my education or to join the military because that's all they knew. Again, this is a very common issue amongst underserved populations. And not just Black and brown, but also rural areas that options are not as accessible. But I don't regret it. I had a wonderful time. I was a Navy corpsman. Can't complain. Spent 3.5 years in Rota, Spain, defending the Mediterranean during a time where diversity was honored and acknowledged. I'm very grateful for the time that I did have and all the resources that it gave me, and what it shaped for me to experience what service and community and commitment is. Thank you.
Thank you. Julio?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Julio Govreau, and I'm the HR director with a local nonprofit called Higher Education Consortium of Metropolitan St. Louis. We provide free services to low-income and first-generation college students that are interested in higher education. So we do get connected with the community quite a bit, and so I'm really very proud of the work that we're doing. One of the things that I had early on, conversations with my parents in my senior year of high school, is what's next for Julio? And my parents didn't have the experience or any kind of professional background to help me with that kind of question. So one of the things that I started doing is having conversations with different recruiters. The Marine Corps recruiter stood out to me because of the values that they have: honor, courage, and commitment. I love to serve. And even before that was an option for me, I did a lot of volunteering in high school. I was involved in music. That was my passion at that point. So I thought to myself, if I can marry the two as far as being of service and being in a military organization as far as being a piccolo player, when I joined the Marine Corps, I was the 8th piccolo player in the entire fleet. So they were in high demand at that point as far as looking for musicians. And that brought out first experiences for myself. The first time leaving home, the first time on a plane, the first time out west, the first time out east, and then playing with musicians from all over the world. I was involved in the Armed Forces School of Music, where people had undergraduate degrees, masters, and PhDs in music. And here I was, 1 week out of high school, being involved in all that. And the Marine Corps really gave me the confidence that you can do anything you want once you set your mind to it. And the only limitation that you put on yourself is the one that it's self-imposed. So again, those dress blues were my armor as far as really building up my confidence and being the first in a lot of situations as far as talking to small crowds like you, to large audiences and auditoriums, and then also setting the trajectory for me to be in an HR career down the road that I didn't even know was an option for me.
Thank you so much. You made me think about, I had a similar experience, not as similar as yours, but my inspiration to join the military was I was a Boy Scout in Puerto Rico and loved the whole scouting and that kind of participation and group gathering and doing a lot of things for the Scouts. And then, I saw the military and said that I want to do something for my country. I want to be amongst the people that are defending the Constitution, and let's do it. And my parents said, well, it's your decision. You do what you need to do. So moving on, I want to ask Gabriela to start. Gabriela, how has your personal identity, whether cultural, professional, or spiritual, shaped the way that you have understood and carry out your service to our country and community?
For me, being a Hispanic woman and having served in the military are deeply connected. How I see service is what my parents had molded for me. And I believe that this is maybe rooted in being Latina or being in a family and an ethnicity that is rooted in family and community, that we are in service to each other, that we must rely on each other, that we are each other's tribe and family. These are ways that we can advance forward. You can't do it without these instincts of something that's so natural. And then having served in the military, realizing that you aren't doing these missions alone, you aren't doing these deployments alone, you are in service to each other. And that has carried me through, having served as a congressional staffer and then having served in a community currently that has been long forgotten. And I'm really grateful that my background gave me that strong sense of family and community, because I did carry that with me, and I think it pushed me to think beyond myself and to see service as something bigger than just fulfilling a role. Again, to me, service is about creating connections and lifting each other up and leaving things better than you found them. So that perspective continues to guide me in everything that I do.
Thank you so much. And Esmeralda, would you like to follow up?
Absolutely. In this case, I believe it has been my faith, not just my faith, but also my background, my heritage as a Latina. I combine those two, and like Gabriela was saying, it creates that service, that giving back to the community, being appreciative and grateful for everything that I have received. When I came into the military, I was an airman basic, so I came in, no stripes whatsoever. By the time I retired, I was a senior master sergeant. So what a difference that made in my life. Not only did I was able to do that, but I also came in with a GED, something that is not always common. And by the time I retired, I had a master's degree. So I'm very grateful for all the opportunities that it has given me. But that sense of giving back, that sense of gratitude, that sense of service has been ingrained in my family for generations. I saw it from my grandmother, my mother. My mother to this day still serves in her church. I see it now in my children. Two of my children have served in the military. And so I think it's generational. I was the first in my family who actually joined the military, and I was going against the culture. Because back in the day, very few Latinas were in the military, and now 17% of Latinas are serving in the military. So that's fantastic that they are no longer the only one.
Yes.
I may have been the only one, but not anymore.
Thank you. Dr. Garza?
Yeah, just to echo a couple of things that have already been said, I think it's that sense of community and family that is a big part. And I think that's one thing that you walk away from with the military too, is that it's one big community.
Yes.
Entirely so. It's not lost on me. This is a phrase that's overused a little bit with, the HBO series, but it is a band of brothers and sisters. And it's unique. I don't think, it's hard to describe it to people that are outside the military, what that means.
Right.
And so that's a big piece of it. As I mentioned, my family has served in the military. I just had my middle son graduate from West Point in May. And so it continues on in our family. I grew up Catholic here in St. Louis, St. Thomas Aquinas High School, if you wanted to know. But I think it's a big part of faith as well, as was mentioned. And I'll just tell a short story. As part of our formation experience in Catholic healthcare, we go back to the roots of our ministry, which for us is St. Francis of Assisi. And so I had the opportunity to go to Assisi 2 years ago, and was led by a Franciscan priest and got to walk the same paths as St. Francis and St. Clare. But what I learned about St. Francis is before he turned his life over to God, he was a soldier, and he fought in wars. He wanted to prove his bravery, and was captured and was a POW. And as you read through his history, you come to understand, his way of thinking. And I mean, my interpretation of some of the things that I read was he probably had PTSD before that was a phrase. And so, the bigger picture was there was this broad connection between the faith, military service, and in fact, the Veterans Administration sponsors trips over there for veterans that are suffering from PTSD, just to understand that this has been going on for generations, and it's closely linked with St. Francis. A couple of other things, my family is very service oriented. My mother was a nurse for 30 years, worked the night shift, so was very committed to serving the community. My father had his own medical laboratory and worked 2 jobs to support his family. And then just being a physician is very service oriented. What I do now in community health is really trying to build community. So I'll just tell you just really briefly as well, and I apologize. But so I was an oddball in the Army as well. So I wasn't a straight line medical unit. I did what's called civil affairs, which is a branch of special operations in where the hearts and minds strategy. And so my job was to help build the countries where we were deployed to. And so I spent a year in Iraq working with the host nation government to rebuild healthcare infrastructure in the country. And you get to learn a lot about people and cultures and families and things like that when you're in a foreign country. And I would tell everybody to this day that was the most transformative year of my life. It was cool. I mean, it really brings it all home to you that this is what it's about.
Thank you for sharing. Gabriela?
Yeah, I mean, I think
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I can go back.
Julio, you're next.
That's okay. So this is a great question. One of the things that I'm very proud of is I grew up in a household where we communicated most of the time in Spanish, and that was part of my identity as far as being Latino in South Texas in the 1990s. And one of the conversations that I had with my dad when I informed him that I was going to join the military, he said, you have to create a path for others to join you. So that way you can be an example that if you can do it, anyone else can do it. And so when I was getting ready to sign and join the Marine Corps, I would see a couple of commercials, and this was very apparent. The commercials that I was exposed to were people that didn't look like me that wanted to be the few, the proud, the Marines. So my dad says, why don't you become one of them so that way you can come out on TV and be the few, the proud, the Marines. So I joined, and little did I know that this path was already set for me, set in motion. So I went to boot camp, graduated, flew out east, and did my training. Part of my training as a military musician is that you had to go through public speaking training because you were going to be recruiting in a lot of different environments as a military musician. And my territory was all over the East Coast. So I would go to New York, DC, you name it, a lot of states. But my audience were huge as far as talking to college students, government officials, community leaders, people in the Latino community. And little did I know that I just wanted to sign up to play. And they said, oh no, you're gonna do way more than that. And what was great about that is I would tell my dad about my experiences, and he goes, do you have any examples of that? I said, Dad, here's a clipping. Here is a commercial, here is a video. And I started really realizing that we do have a lot of power in our community to represent. And the biggest opportunity for me was to be in Warrenton, New Jersey when I played the Stars and Stripes piccolo solo for the first time in front of 3,000 people.
Wow.
And that was amazing because they got to see me I was able to connect with the audience without ever saying one single word, and there was a qualified and competent Marine that executed on that song and that concert, and then afterwards, I also was able to visit with the audience. And so those are the kind of experiences that the Marine Corps has brought to me as far as I belonged, I was one of the few, and I did my job.
Thank you. So, just a fact, the Marine Corps has the largest and the highest proportion of Hispanic service members who make up 27.7% of today's active duty force. So you were one of those, 27%. And in early 2025, approximately 314,000 Hispanic people are serving in the active duty U.S. military, which makes up around 17% of the force. So it is the largest minority group in the military. So, Dr. Garza, now,
Yeah.
going to you, what was one of the most significant challenges you faced in your journey, and how did resilience, support networks, or leadership values help you overcome it?
Yeah, that's a complex question. So like there's everyday things that are challenges in the military. So I think most people here in the bench and in the audience would understand that the Army, as well as the other military branches, are a huge bureaucracy, right? And sometimes you're just like, why are they doing this? You know, it's like, this is so painful. And my son, when he was at West Point, would sometimes call me and complain about things. And I was like, hey, son, you got to understand. The Army is made up of people. And people can be good or not so good, or they can do some things that you don't agree with. But the Army itself, what it stands for, is the thing that you have to rely on. That the Army is there for a reason. It's the people that you may get frustrated with. But service to your country is something that you need to be proud of. And so I don't think he's completely accepted that as an answer yet, but he's going to try. But as far as other challenges, I'll just tell the short story of when I was deployed. And as I said, my job was as a civil affairs officer. And when you're deployed, when you're a theater of war, I mean, there's significant challenges to you, both, physically, tactically, morally, all of those things wrapped up into one. And so the short story here, I was working with the Directorate of Health in the Saladin province in Tikrit, Iraq, which was in the central part of the country, is Saddam's hometown. So we were dealing with politics up and down. These are like deadly politics. These aren't politics that we think of here locally. But so we had this order from Paul Bremer. So if you remember Paul Bremer, he was the administrator for the CPA down in Baghdad. If you asked us up locally, we all thought he was a knucklehead. And but they would pass these edicts that would come down, and one of them was for de-Baathification of the leadership in the government agencies. And so we had already removed the director of health for the region because he was a bad actor and he was in the Ba'ath Party. I mean, personally, I thought he was fine, but there was no way we were going to move forward with him. And so I appointed this other person, Dr. Muhammad, as the interim health director until we got around to figuring out what to do. And after this edict came out, of course, the Iraqis, they hear this edict and they try and interpret it. And I had scheduled meetings with him. When scheduled, it was usually drop-in. And he was a wonderful man. And he did things for the right reason. And here he was trying to lead this agency in a time of massive turbulence in the middle of a war. And he's literally almost crying, talking to me about how he had just joined the Ba'ath Party because his family was being persecuted by not being part of this organization. And there was different levels to the Ba'ath Party, and he was at the lowest level. He did it so his kids could go to school, so that he could have opportunities for a job. all of these different things, but he was horrified that he might not be able to work to support his family because of this policy. And after I listened to him, I came to understand that this was not a well thought out policy. And so I just told him, don't worry about it. We're going to take care of it. And gave him a lot of relief, and we took care of it. And so even though it was a direct policy from our leadership in Baghdad, it made no sense at the local level. So I figured I followed the spirit of the law, maybe not the letter of the law, because his heart was not in the Ba'ath Party. He did it because he was trying to help his family. And so I don't know if that's resistance or just trying to think things through, but you have to operate on a human level when you're involved in those things. You can't operate on a bureaucratic level. It's not going to work. And that policy created more problems for us down the road, rising the insurgency, than it did anything to build the government back up. So that was my small example of resistance.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your example. Esmeralda.
That is a really good question. I remember right after 9/11, 2 weeks later, I forward deployed to Qatar. At the time, of course, we didn't know that Qatar was going to be a safe place. And so when I arrived, I was religious affairs during my military service. I served for 26 years. At that point, I was a staff sergeant, so I was very new as an NCO, non-commissioned officer. And I arrived to Qatar, and everyone is staying within a warehouse. We had troops were coming in. It was, again, 9/11 had just happened 2 weeks prior. And so we had about, 200 people within a warehouse. And I saw that men and women were all in the same location, sleeping on cots. And I didn't want to be part of that. And I didn't want for other women to be in that situation. So that's when I found my voice. I was very young in the military, and I talked to the chaplain and I said, "Sir, I think we need to do something about this, because in a few weeks or months, we may end up with pregnancies in theater." And he agreed. And so we talked to the commander, and they created a separation. That way women could be in a separate area, and to give them more privacy. And I discovered that by me standing up for them, I was also standing up for myself, but I was also standing up for the operations and for the mission operations, to make sure that nothing would impede us from actually doing our mission. So for me, that was a challenge, but I also discovered that in that challenge, I found my voice. And I realized that my voice mattered, and that I mattered, and that even though I was so young in the military, what I had to say was important. And so now I recommend for people to, no matter where you are, you can lead from your seat. You can lead from whatever position you have, because every individual has potential for success from the location where they're at. And not only that, but another challenge that I had was that during that same deployment, one of my sons, ended up in the hospital. And it was so hard as a mother to know that my child was in the hospital, that he needed surgery, and that I wasn't there. Earlier today, I said that 17% of the women are serving, and these women, just like men, have children, but a lot of these women, we're very connected to our children. So being away, especially when they need us the most, can be very, very difficult. And for me, it was really tough knowing that I wasn't going to be there for my son when he was having the surgery. But our military community rallied around my family, rallied around my husband and my children, and they were there for them. And this community has expanded, where we continue to see each other, we continue to connect, and this military community has now become like my family.
Thank you for your resilience.
Thank you.
And facing so many challenges. Gabriela.
Yeah, I like to say that a senior non-commissioned officer or senior enlisted leader hated to see me coming, because they knew that I did my job so well that I was able to advocate for some of my fellow peers who had fear of reprisal. I was welcomed at the table when other maybe junior enlisted weren't, because I had something to say and I felt that it needed to be heard. And so I carried that throughout my entire military service, whether that was for families who had mold in their homes on base housing, whether that was families who didn't have enough money, so they were using SNAP benefits and WIC, and they needed to take time off early to go to the food banks. And so these were all issues that a lot of our service members were too scared to talk about. There was shame around it. Maybe there was some religious issues as well that limited them from participating in some very historical events, whether it was like a wet down, because that was a huge thing. If you don't know what that is, when you pick up rank, everyone goes out. The person who picked up rank has to buy drinks for everybody, and there were several service members who that just didn't work for them, and they were not included on those conversations on what it means to make it to the next rank. So I felt a little bit maybe too empowered to give voice to the voiceless, but I felt the need to break those generational cycles from members who came before me, and I fear that in the current state of the way our government is headed, and our DoD secretary has decided to speak on things, is that we're headed back into that situation. I fear for our junior service members. I fear for women who are having their families and trying to family plan, and service members who are trying to family plan, and they will not be put into consideration. Those things definitely keep me up at night. Those things I worked through a lot. Again, working through the bureaucratic system for service members who were stationed at Camp Pendleton and MCRD, Marine Corps bases. And so, during the 2016 presidency. So again, I see a lot of these cycles being coming up again, and I'm very concerned. I'm concerned deeply.
Well, thank you for your effort and for your resistance and for showing up to make a difference and resilience. Julio.
So one of the things about myself is I'm an introvert. So here is an introvert that's going into the military, into a very public-facing role, and being able to interact with the community quite a bit. I was very lucky that 2 of my service band members were also Latinos, which I was very surprised, higher-ranking NCOs. They took me under their wing, and they helped me find my voice. One of the things that we did on base, I was stationed in Quantico, is I found out that there was a lot more other introverts in the base as well, as far as people really not being very comfortable sharing their voice. So one of the things I did is I said, you know what, why don't we just start moving and having conversations? So I started gathering groups of people to run. And so that way we could have a purpose as far as running a specific distance or being in races and becoming part of a team. That gave us the confidence to not only do our jobs better as far as amplifying our voices, but also gaining that confidence that there is a power in us in regards to saying whatever you needed to or share. And the other thing that it gave me a voice on, which was challenging, is I like to have process when I do my job. So I became one of those people that I volunteered to do standard operating procedure manuals. I volunteered to put processes in place so that way everyone was treated the same when it came to promotion. That way everyone had equitable access to whatever they aspired to aside from their current role. And I still do that today in my job. I love to put things on paper so that way if you're interested in this path, let's talk about that. And the other thing about this too that was challenging is I needed to make sure that I also was very compassionate towards myself as far as being the first in many of my situations. Because when you're the first, you don't have a manual. You don't have a way out. You have to do it and then gain the experience and then think about what went well and what didn't go well. So a lot of my job, I had to really sit down with myself and do post reviews as far as things that I can do again and things that I should maybe pivot on a little quicker. And that's where I really valued the leadership of my band director as far as my chief warrant officer. He was really good about giving me feedback and caring enough to have those conversations with me. Because again, I was interacting with people that had 20, 30 years plus of experience, and here's this 18-year-old kid coming in 1 week out of high school and then starting to do their job. So I really value the Marine Corps because it really gave me my voice, but it also gave me the idea of compassion is okay because you deserve it.
Well, thank you for being a trailblazer and somebody that broke the wall and opened up the path for many. And I'm going to stick with you, Julio, and ask you what message or lesson would you like younger generations, especially those from underrepresented backgrounds, to take away from your story and the stories we share here today at Soldiers Memorial?
So one of the things I want to share with you is that the military is a great option for a future, whether you want to do it for many years or for one tour. It provides a lot of structure for those that need it, like myself. I really enjoyed that from the moment that I got up to the time that I finished work. I had something to do and I knew exactly what to do in that. And it really gave me a really strong sense of worth. And so nowadays, too, with our younger generations, this is a great option because it provides you with a lot of support, not only from mental well-being, but also educational opportunities that we might not have access to. Because of the GI Bill, I was able to go to undergraduate several times. I have 2 master's degrees, and because of that support, I was able to get out of those experiences with debt, zero debt, excuse me. And that also exposed me to great people like we have here on our panel and you, and otherwise I wouldn't have had that opportunity. So the military is a great option for you if that's something of interest, where you can have plenty of opportunity and also you can do whatever you set yourself to as far as being in the military.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Just a side note, in 2024, a report by CNA, National Security Think Tank, found that Hispanic individuals are a crucial and growing source for military recruitment. So to your point, Esmeralda, please.
Sure. So I currently still live in a military installation, and I have the honor every day of looking and seeing, when I drive up to the base, I see military members, and I get a chance to talk to them. They already know me because I'm there all the time. But when I see Latino veterans or Latino service members, I make it a point of saying hello even more. I have brought tamales to them. I have brought different types of Mexican foods to them because I want them to know that there's a community. Even though I don't know them, there's still somebody out there rallying for them. And I want to let them know that they belong in every conversation. They belong in every room they walk into. Their Latinidad, them being Latin American, is just a strength. It's resilience. They are who they are, and for them to be proud of their background. Never shy away of your background. On the contrary, use it as strength. For those of us who have the honor of speaking a second language, be proud of your language. Do not shy away from using it, because the moment that we stop using it, we lose it. For many years, I was not using the language. I was not using a lot of Spanish. And so I started losing it. And it wasn't until I started working at St. Louis University and I was in community engagement that I was able to come back to my language and utilize it. And just recently, I had the privilege of actually recording a story that I did in Spanish. That was a little hard, but to every young man out there, every young woman who is serving, be proud of your service, stand tall. Be proud of your culture. Do not shy away from being who you are. Embrace it.
Thank you. Dr. Garza.
Yeah, I'll echo everything that my partners have said up here. I think there's a couple of things. So one, I do believe that one of the military's greatest strengths is our diversity, hands down.
Yeah.
So a couple of things, and Gabriela, you brought this up, is that, you know, there's not, in the civilian side, sometimes there's not as much opportunity, depending upon which culture you come from, which social strata, which economic strata you come from. I personally feel like the military is a great leveler. And, things that are unfair on the civilian side, there's a lot more opportunity in the military side. If you do the right things, if you accomplish the right things, you have a very good chance of having a great career and to doing things that you never thought were going to be available to you. I absolutely think that. This is a weird thing to say, but I think that there is much more equity in the military than there is on the
Absolutely.
civilian side.
Yes.
I mean, that's what standard operating procedures and regulations are all about. Is like,
Correct.
if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, if you accomplish this, if you meet this goal, things are going to happen. And so I think that it is a wonderful opportunity for people to achieve something that's bigger than themselves or put them on the right path, or just to expose them to this is what your potential is. Because a lot of young kids never understand what their potential is until they have somebody or something believe in them and give them opportunity. And that's what I think is important to expose young people to, is you do have potential and the military can show you the way. It's not always great. It's not always fun. Camping in the Army is not the same as camping in Boy Scouts. So
Or the Air Force.
but by and large, it is it's a very equitable society.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Gabriela.
Yeah, especially with a younger sailor. My brother, 13 years, my junior, just graduated Navy boot camp and is on his way to become a Navy corpsman as well. I don't know what I said to encourage him to follow in my footsteps, but I'm really proud of him. I would like to urge our youth and our younger community and these younger service members to embrace themselves despite whatever directives come down. I believe that they will find community within each other, as we've all talked about. You live with the people you are with. You are surviving with the people in the military. They are your family. When you are not, when you are away from home, they are your home away from home. And to look out for each other. We are coming into some interesting times. And speaking up and insisting on equity, you are not just opening doors for yourself, but you're holding them open for the next generation. And that's how real change happens. And that's the legacy I hope we can all leave behind.
Thank you. And Julio. Oh,
You started with Julio.
I already got Julio. See, this is what happens when it's Saturday morning. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor to a couple of questions. Who wants to ask the first? Anybody?
Don't be shy.
I know we gave a lot of information. Okay, yes, you can go first.
This is addressed to Julio. Julio, I don't know if you mentioned it, but what instrument did you play?
So I played flute, piccolo, oboe, saxophone, and bassoon in the military. Depends on what event I was scheduled for, but most of the time I played flute and piccolo. I'll give you an example. I used to attend a lot of officer mess nights, a lot of parades, a lot of concerts, and then when we were meeting with government officials, it was me and a small contingency of the Chronicle Marine Band that would go and greet them. And I also had the privilege of playing for my commander-in-chief at the White House in the Rose Garden.
Very good. Thank you, and congratulations for that achievement. Anybody else?
Anybody?
Could I make a comment on that?
Yes, you can make it
I'm
complete.
not sure when you were in the Marine Corps. So I was able to go to a gathering this is when I served in the Obama administration at Hispanic Heritage Month at Vice President Biden's house. And,
wow.
It was the Naval Observatory, the Vice President's residency. And the Marine Corps band was there playing. And so I didn't know if there was a connection there, or you were probably out by then. But this was about 10 years ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a while.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, it was fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your service. I have never served, and so it's really inspiring to hear everybody's stories. For younger folks who are interested in pursuing service for the United States, how would you suggest they go about choosing which branch or which direction they go?
Oh, man. Okay.
Pick the Air Force.
Okay, who wants to
I would
answer?
say pick the Air Force.
Yeah. That was the choice. You know, they have air-conditioned barracks back then.
It's like, do you like good food and good housing,
I would
or
say based on duty stations, because I did not want to get stationed in O'Fallon, Missouri. Sorry. My first duty station was Rhoda, Spain. I'm sorry. I gallivanted around Europe for 3 years. And I then went to San Diego. So really no bad choices.
Julio, do you have anything to add to that?
I knew that I was going to be a Marine first before a musician, and I like weapons as far as being proficient with them. And so for me, it was a clear cut as far as defending my country first and then playing music secondly. And so for the Marine Corps, if you're interested and you know that you like being outdoors or it's a very structured environment and that you are going to be deployed and trained, that's the assumption. And so that is a good option for you if you like that kind of activity. Also, there's this esprit de corps where when you leave the military, you are considered a Marine for life. And when I see someone, I look at their license plate or they wear something that has a logo, Semper Fi, and you have that sense of brotherhood. And so I think it's just going to depend on what you want to do, but every service provides everything that you need. And as Dr. Garza was mentioning, that you'll get the opportunities, is like, what do you want to do with them?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Sal, I see you have the microphone.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for your service and for this panel. It's very enlightening and encouraging to know that our Latino service history is being carried on through your generation, the generations upcoming, and the people that are here also who have served us in the military. And so I have two questions, and you can choose to. Anybody can. How do we, with that reality, how do we strengthen the intergenerational knowledge and service of our Latino members? We have, as we mentioned earlier, people as old as 100, over 100 years old that are still out there from World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, the Mideast wars. So how do we figure out a way to interconnect and take the lessons learned from each generation and pass them on to the newer, to the as you all have talked about, the generation coming up? That's number one question. I was, as you were talking, Gabriela, what you said really resonated with me, because one of the lessons that I learned when I was in the military is there's a military code of conduct. There are lawful laws, there are unlawful laws. We are living in an environment where it's impacting our community, the image that our community has about the military. And so if any of you would like to comment on that, how do we reinforce those things that we still hold so valuable in terms of our defense of the Constitution and enemies, I think Dr. Garza said, abroad and domestic, but the lines are being blurred. And I hope it's temporary, but any comments on those two topics would be interesting.
Well, I'll just repeat what I said to my son, which is, and it's tough in a politically divided country. But the core of what the military is about service to the country. And that's what you have to believe is going to continue. You can see the flags behind us, and the flag of the U.S. Army, it says, "This will defend." Mm-hmm. That's what it means. So I would say,
oh.
sorry, I just wanted to follow with that. So when you're talking with young people, I think it's important to relay to them that, this isn't a political organization you belong to. This is the military. The military has its set of values, which it won't compromise on. And you have to believe that. Otherwise, what you do is you get a service that's filled with people that think the same way. And that's wrong. Well, it's not a political statement at all. We rose our hands and said we support and defend the Constitution of the United States. And I think each
Against
one of
all
us
enemies.
takes it seriously.
Yeah.
You're taking an oath to the Constitution, not to somebody. So that's the most important thing.
And these events are so important for that reason. Bringing light to what is happening. Also joining, you were asking, how can we bridge the generational gap? Joining the veterans of foreign wars. I'm the chaplain for Post 1739 in Belleville, Illinois. You can join those as well. You don't have to be, you can serve as auxiliary too. And so there's different ways to connect, supporting the service members that are actually currently serving right now. There's many, many different ways. And yes, we're living in very difficult situations right now. When I was active duty, I worked in the chaplain corps, which is diversity of faith, diversity of thought, diversity of religion. And that is still very much in existence in the military. And that diversity is still very much, you see it each and every day with members of all backgrounds serving in the military. So that still exists. And it takes the community to rally around our military and do not lose that support. We want for you to continue to support them because they need our support.
Well, thank you. And no more questions?